James Bond's latest mission has finally dropped on DVD and Blu-ray. Spectre is out now. It's the 24th film in the Bond movie franchise, and it is awesome. It is everything I've wanted for a Bond film, especially for somebody like Daniel Craig. His legacy that he's built up over the past couple movies, so much of my love for the James Bond movie franchise was just satisfied with that movie. I'm rambling right now, but I don't even care. Quite obviously, I'm a huge fan of James Bond. I will defend that movie series until it has completely fizzled out, which I don't think it ever will. After Skyfall, what better to follow up on James Bond's 50th anniversary than the reintroduction of his greatest adversary? Enter Spectre, Daniel Craig's fourth film and for what a lot of people are saying are his final film. This movie kicks complete ass. I love it to death. It has everything that is a James Bond film. But what is that? What makes a James Bond film? I think honestly the answer is more simple than people would think. It has James Bond, obviously, Agent 007 doing 007 things, kicking ass, using awesome gadgets, driving fast cars, seducing women, and saving the day and most likely the world in the process. But there's so much more than that. It's not just these familiar plot elements and following a formula that is the James Bond movies. Style is what makes a James Bond movie. It is this attitude. It is these amazing moments in cinematography, these huge sweeping shots, visiting exotic locales, seeing exotic cultures, getting to see more of the world and the underworld involved with it. That is a James Bond movie. What separates James Bond from the competition? There's got to be something, and I think what it is following a formula that people are familiar with and really blowing their minds with the limits that this movie series can push. The movie series adapts to the modern day as it goes along. Take James Bond in the 1960s and compare what he's doing to James Bond in 2015. You've got a mad scientist with a nuclear reactor preparing to destroy the world, and you've got an organization that is almost in complete control of every underworld ever going right after James Bond, but they're responsible with a lot of stuff that has threatened the world lately, especially, British intelligence and the safety of most security in the world. You have the same character throughout so many different storylines, played by different actors, of course, but they all, share similar qualities that make up James Bond. Let's go back and check out some of the movies that have been in the franchise so far, starting with 1963's Dr. No. Now, this was a movie that nobody had ever seen before, and by that I mean like the type of film that it was something that nobody had ever seen before. It was suave, it was sophisticated. We have this character that is just so huge and is an icon. I mean, he was iconic from the moment that character hit the screen.
Bond. James Bond.
So when you bring in somebody like Sean Connery, who is just this, he's got this great voice, this great visage, this awesome, silhouette, this profile, he really does take on this role. He becomes James Bond, and it's introduced to movie screens forever. We're given the idea that James Bond is this ultra-sophisticated British man. He lives by a code, lives by a creed. He carries himself with such a way, and he would never compromise that way just from his very first interaction with the characters around him. I mean, that's powerful. That's great in a character. In From Russia with Love, James Bond has to battle against the forces of Spectre while undercovering an operation in locales in Russia, all over the world, doing all these great stunts in great locations people have just not seen before. And I think that is one of the things I love so much about movies is it takes you places. It shows you things that you're just not used to. It takes you right out of reality and puts you into the reality of the movie. And this reality is badass. James Bond is badass, especially in this film, when he goes up against this huge thing. And it's so much fun being a part of that battle and seeing that battle play out. Ian Fleming wrote the James Bond novels, and fun fact, the first James Bond movie was not based off of the first James Bond book. It was actually based off the most recent James Bond book with elements of other ones of his stories added into the movie in order to create this franchise. And it all starts with the introduction of the main villain being a member of an organization not in that book. In the book, he is part of the organization SMERSH. Instead, they change it to be part of the organization Spectre, who would go on to be James Bond's adversary for the next while. Spectre as an organization is amazing. It is this everywhere at once organization. It's so much larger than life. But the point is, you have the character of James Bond and identify his limits, and then you throw him into different situations. Now that is pretty genius filmmaking. but there's just something about James Bond that cannot be replicated by its competition. Between his style, what he does, how he saves the world, how he carries himself, the setting, the filming, just everything about it is so much more different. You can watch like 5 seconds of a James Bond movie and just hear the music and know that you're watching a James Bond movie. But there's so many carbon copies of other films out there, and you can say, oh, I don't know what that is. I don't know James Bond. Well, buddy, you know James Bond when you see James Bond. The stories that James Bond goes through, all these amazing films that he has been in, and all the things he's done to save the world, I mean, you have a portfolio of badassery to go through. People tell me all the time, you know, Rem, you're amazing. You're just like James Bond. You're so sophisticated and suave and awesome. How can we be like you? Well, the answer, my friends, is watch a movie series that is suave, sophisticated, and knows it all. Go check this movie series out and watch Spectre. Go ahead and order it on demand or watch it on DVD or wait for it to come out on Netflix, which it will eventually at some point. But everybody needs to see this. Everybody needs to see this and the most recent, the Daniel Craig films, Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and then Spectre. Because I believe this is a huge chunk of the James Bond movie franchise that has really propelled it forward into the 21st century. So if I can make a few suggestions, I'd say that you probably need to check out for retro James Bond films, GoldenEye, Thunderball, Dr. No, and From Russia with Love, definitely. But do check out Casino Royale and this newest film, Spectre. I may do another review video for Spectre, the whole film. It'll probably have spoilers in it. So if I do post that, go ahead and check it out. I'll post a link to it in this video somewhere. Until then, thanks for watching. This has been The Movies with Rem. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.